discretion is advised. This is 10-Minute Murder.
During 2013, 17-year-old Tara Willenborg was excited for the rest of her life. She had moved out of her family home and started living at an apartment which she shared with her 21-year-old partner, Josh Lewis. Despite their age gap, family and friends reported that the couple were happy together, and even though they weren't formally engaged, they started referring to each other as fiancés. Josh was in the process of saving to buy an expensive ring for Tara, which he planned on using to officially propose to her in July that year. On March 2nd, 2013, Tara was sitting on the end of the staircase that led up to her apartment when she was approached by a familiar face. It was 49-year-old Richard Hooten, whose girlfriend lived in the apartment opposite Tara's. That night, Richard had been out drinking with his girlfriend and her family at a bar, but he decided to go home alone because he wasn't in the mood to get drunk. When he greeted Tara, he asked her if she was interested in hanging out for a while. Tara agreed and invited Richard inside her apartment. Later, Richard reflected on the moment that he'd seen Tara sitting on the stairs and admitted that as soon as he saw her, he knew he was going to try to sexually assault her. Soon after, Tara turned on her television and the two of them sat down to watch. Richard suddenly attacked her. He was able to overpower Tara, who was younger and smaller than him, and he proceeded to sexually assault her while choking her. At one point, Richard looked at Tara and noticed during the assault she had stopped breathing. He panicked and attempted to resuscitate her, but when his CPR attempt failed, he realized that he had killed her. Now he needed a way to make her death look non-suspicious, and he tried to stage a crime scene to make it look like Tara had taken her own life. He grabbed Tara's uniform from the time she had worked at Subway and tied the apron tightly around her throat, hoping that it would obscure the fact that she had been manually strangled to death. Richard left Tara's body lying inside her apartment and fled the scene. Later that night, Tara's fiancé returned home from his shift at work. He immediately thought it was strange that the apartment door was unlocked. The couple always made an effort to lock the door, even if one of them was inside the apartment. In the living room, Josh discovered Tara's dead body, with the apron still tied around her neck. He cut the apron before attempting to perform CPR, but deep down, he knew that his fiancée was already gone. Later, Josh vividly recalled the moment when he found Tara. Quote, "I remember staring at the wall blankly," he said. "I couldn't move. I wanted to throw up so bad." Searching desperately for help, Josh ran to ask a neighbor. In the apartment directly across the hall, he saw Richard Hooten. He'd recognized him because he had seen him hanging around the complex, but the two of them had never spoken. Something about Richard gave Josh a strange feeling. He didn't look like he should have. Josh later said, "It didn't click at first, but when I got to thinking of it, he looked more worried than shocked that it happened." Only a few minutes after seeing Josh, Richard left the apartment complex. He fled to an abandoned gas station in the area where he hid in one of the bathrooms.
911, what's the address for your emergency?
My girlfriend is raped and I think she's dead. I need someone here now.
Okay, is she breathing?
No, she ain't. There's vomit. She's been beat. There's something tied around her neck. I just cut it off. She's dead. I've been doing CPR for the past 20 minutes. She ain't coming back. Get someone down here right now before I kill him.
They're on their way, okay?
Because I think my neighbor did it.
I've got the other dispatcher dispatching them at this time.
On the day of Tara's funeral, Richard was formally charged with her sexual assault and murder. Simultaneously, the Sex Crimes Divisions of the LMPD was carrying out an investigation into an unrelated assault that had taken place earlier that same year, in which Richard was also suspected to be the perpetrator. Clark County Prosecutor Steve Stewart announced his intentions to make sure that Tara received justice, stating that he would be trying for the death penalty and that Richard should never see the light of day again. Tara's uncle, Neil, commented on Richard's arrest, saying, quote, "Our hearts are broken and our lives will never be the same. We're relieved that the murderer is behind bars where he can't hurt anyone else, but nothing he could say or do will bring Tara back. Our hearts can't yet imagine a future without her. Tara was our baby and always will be." Initially, Richard was facing the death penalty, but after he decided to accept a plea deal, he was sentenced to a life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 70 years. He pleaded guilty to a wide range of criminal charges: murder, criminal deviant conduct, and rape, as well as being a habitual offender. He apologized to Tara's family, and he seemed accepting of his sentence. When he was asked about the decision to accept the plea deal, he responded that he was trying to help everyone out in the family. Tara's uncle spoke for the rest of the family, stating that they were trying to remember the good parts of Tara's life instead of focusing on her death. "We don't want to focus on the horrible way Tara died," he said, "but on the beautiful life that she lived. She brought kindness, humor, and peace wherever she went. We're going to miss her smiles, her curls, and her cupcakes."
I just lost it, left Rojo's with my friends and my girlfriend. I came back, she was sitting on the steps, and I went back to my apartment. I come back out, she was still sitting out there and asked me to hang out, so we went in her. Started hanging out there.
When did you know? When did you decide that you were going to attack her? Did you plan it?
I didn't really plan it, I didn't really plan it or nothing like that because I went into her apartment and then, she was a pretty girl, But I didn't know she was 17. I thought she was like 19 or 20,
Would that have made any difference?
Not really. I never raped nobody younger than me. It's always over.
She was crying and telling you not to do this. Why did you continue to do that?
I just lost it in my head. I just lost control.
Were you under the influence? Were you drinking on any drugs?
I went on no drugs. I was drinking earlier, at the house.
Has she been drinking? Is she under any influence?
I don't know. I don't know if she was drinking or not.
It seems you said this is far from the first time this has happened. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
How many times has this happened?
I got accused for rape like 3 or 4 times.
You've been to prison for rape 3 or 4 times?
Yes.
How many rapes have there been that you haven't been to prison for?
None.
Why do you rape women?
I don't know.
Can you help yourself?
In the affidavit, the police released yesterday, it said that that you knew you were going to rape her. Is that not true? Or that you told police that you knew ahead of time that this was going to occur?
I didn't tell her.
Did you get a feeling of any sort before coming into her house?
She was a pretty girl, So I did want to have sex with her.
How do you feel about murdering Tara?
Very bad. I wish I could take it back.
How did that happen? How did it go from you've obviously raped women before. Why did it increase to murder?
I was just having sex with her and anxiety on me, I guess. When I had my hands around her throat and I just kept going and going, I didn't know how strong I was really putting pressure on her, I was choking her.
Why did you keep going when she was crying and telling you no and
Even
clearly
after
in
she
a lot
stopped breathing?
I just blocked it out. I wasn't thinking about it until after it was too late.
And then when you saw that she was no longer breathing, take us through what you did next. It looks like you tried to cover it up.
Well, what I did, I took her off the bed to try to give her CPR and mouth to mouth, trying to revive her. And I did that for like 10 to 15 minutes trying to get her back, and I couldn't. And I just acted like, she did it herself, so I tied up one of her aprons or whatever around her neck, and I left.
Why didn't you call police or ambulance at that time?
I was scared because I already did that crime.
Mr. Hooten, people who are charged with murder and rape usually don't speak out and tell us details about what they did. Why are you doing this?
I'm just trying to, give y'all closure to what happened, and everything, and help her family.
That's 10-Minute Murder for today. Brief and bingeable true crime. My name is Joe. I'm the host, and thank you so much for taking the time to listen to my little podcast today. If you're brand new to 10-Minute Murder, welcome. Settle in, hit subscribe wherever you're listening, and catch up on all of the back episodes of the podcast. There's a whole bunch, so prop your feet up and take some time for yourself and just binge one right after the other. That's the way the podcast was meant to be listened to. Now, if you've only got 10 minutes, or 10 or so minutes, then, listen to one episode. And I appreciate you listening to this one. If you are new here, like I said, subscribe, and then also follow along on Facebook, Instagram, any place on social media that you want to, and you'll see the photos that go along with the podcast. And that goes for you OG listeners too. If you haven't followed the podcast on social media, go ahead and do that. Links are in the show notes of this episode, or you can go to 10minutemurder.com and you'll find all that stuff. All right, that's going to do it. Thank you for listening to another 10-Minute Murder podcast episode. I will see you in the next one.